G'day and welcome back for more Space Engineers Survival, and it's tram time! I've made a few little upgrades to the station after finishing the welding of all of the blocks that we placed down last time. I have added some yellow warning areas with some mind the gap signs. Not sure I'm fully convinced on the yellow down the entire length of the platform. May change that up and put some barricades in once we figure out where on the tram we'll actually be walking onto. But we'll leave it this way for now. One nice thing I was able to do here, which I hadn't been able to do before, is using Schaustel's new updates to his mod. There's the 1x1 ramps, and I feel like they look quite nice in the roof, adding a bit of slope to the catwalk part of it. And I'm quite happy with how this has turned out. I think it fits in with the rest of the design of this base quite well. So it's time for the tram. I have added a small rotor head to this rotor. I have also locked this rotor so that we don't end up with the same problem we had on the elevator over at the solar axe. And then what we need to do is, first off, I'll place a couple of blocks on the end of this. Then we're going to need a sideways piston. We need this piston because when we start placing wheels right up against the edge of this block on this side, we won't be able to place wheels so that they'll actually be able to put pressure on the rail from both sides without compressing the suspension on this side. So I'm going to use the piston to push the whole contraption this way to allow me to place the wheels on this side of the rail as well. And if that didn't make sense just then, it will make a lot more sense once I get it done. So we'll start with the piston like that. We possibly won't need the vertical ones though. I'll put a vertical piston in just in case, since it is possible I'll need it, but I don't think I will. Another thing I'm going to do, which will help me shortly, is I'm going to grab this passenger seat that I put down here for recharging while I was welding, and I'm going to move it onto our grid that's going to have our wheels. If there are any other wheels attached to the base, this makes it easier to know which ones are which, because this is on the main grid for the wheels, so they'll show up white in the control panel, which is kind of handy. Now, what we need is to build each set of wheels before we build the next set. And what I mean by that is we're going to have vertical wheels pushing along the side of the rail here, horizontal ones pushing along the top, vertical along this side, same for the top rail, and that'll hold the tram car in position quite neatly. I want to build each set on their own so that we can group them easily, as having wheels in these sorts of orientations... Uh-oh, that stinging adversary is very close. Oh, maybe. Yeah. Oh, I think it's down. Oh, it's down somewhere. It's a lot of explosions. That is disconcerting. Why is it still exploding? I think we'll probably be okay. We'll find out later. I couldn't see showers of sparks from the solar tower. Let's just make sure we still don't. Oh. Huh. Yeah, I spoke too soon. We might want to go up and check that. And we'll be back in a moment. Dang it! Where did that come from? If it came from any of the normal directions, it shouldn't have been able to do any real damage. Grrr. I just want to build my tram. Let me build my tram. Come on, elevator. Uh-oh. Well, that's not good. Saying power loss on all my... No, you've got power. You're one of the new ones. I may need to upgrade that script, as Rahman has made quite a few little changes to it. I'm suspicious that this got hit by debris, not by the actual guns aboard the ship. The damage is too isolated. I reckon that's what happened. What do I need? Is it just that one? It's just that one solar cell. Solar panel. How are you guys up here doing? You still got power? I don't know what's happening. That is frustrating. Oh well. Yeah, I definitely get the impression that one of the enemy ships, or the enemy ship that we just shot down, managed to be moving at quite a high velocity and has kind of bounced down the hill doing damage to various things as it hit them. Because there's no reason whatsoever it would shoot at the bridge. The bridge is unpowered, it doesn't have any... And by unpowered I mean it doesn't have any power consuming blocks other than the lights. And the guns should target computers, not target everything else. So what I reckon we heard was explosions as the ship kind of bounced its way down. Or as pieces of it showered into the tower. So there is damage all the way along it. Well, the repairs are complete, but I still have no idea how any of the damage got done. It was very strange, and I suspect it's most likely that the crashing vehicle itself did the damage, as in chunks of it flying into the solar tower and whatnot. But that doesn't really matter now. Let's get back to the tram. And what I've got on my second hotbar here is the 1x1 left and 1x1 right. I did it this way as it'll make it easier for me to place each one, and it also makes it easier for me to fix the groups and remember which one's which once I start building in the wheels, and I didn't want to do this. The rough arrangement of the wheels. If we're going left, that'll be... So front ways will be this way, so I want to put a left wheel on here. Like so. Wait, is that right? Nope, that's not right. I'm starting too close to that edge. I'm going to start another block over. Because I can only push the whole contraption this way, I want to start with a little bit of extra space on this side. So if we put our 1x1 left there, when we then move half a block this way, the wheel's still going to be on our rail, which is what I'm after. Just as an example, let's put in our vertical wheel, and I think we could put one on this here. No. There we go, on that one. So this wheel will push against this side of the rail and keep it in place that way. This wheel's going to push against the rail itself and support the whole train, and then we'll have another one vertically on this side. But as I said before, let's place all of one type of wheel first so that we can easily make groups of them. And for this tram car, the part of it between the wheels is actually going to have to be relatively long, since I'm going to be sticking a whole bunch of contraptions out the front of it to allow for the drilling of the tunnel with the tram itself. This first tram is going to be purely functional, and it will probably get turned into a somewhat more attractive tram once I've got the tunnel all dug out. But really, this one's aim is purely to work. It's not to do anything more fancy than that. So there's going to be a lot of extra little bits of armor block around the place that really wouldn't be there or would be molded in some way if this were the final look. So I think what we'll do for now is have a wheel each way on each end. It's probably not necessary to do it like that, but I kind of like it. Definitely think that once we've got cargo and battery power on this, we will need this extra support in terms of weight capacity. So having more horizontal wheels in this position may become necessary to try and ensure that the whole tram's mass is supported on these little wheels. There's another left wheel there. Then we'll grab a right wheel here and a right wheel here. And those will be our horizontal suspensions. So what we can do is hop in this chair, we'll grab our incomplete wheels. These are going to be a group called Tram Wheels Lower Horizontal. Save. And show blocking terminal off. Now we can place our sideways or our vertical wheels. I'll eventually rotate it into the right position. One there, one there. I might actually, just to assist with managing on the curves, add another pair of wheels, add another wheel at each end, so we've got a pair at each end. Rivion's design had far fewer wheels that I'm going to use. I'm deliberately going with more. One, because I'm within a natural gravity field, so the whole tram is going to be affected by gravity. And two, because I'm probably going to end up with a very heavy tram, so I want to make sure that we've got stability when we go around each of the little bends that I'm going to be adding into this thing. Hop back in the seat. Name this group of wheels. So that's how I'm going to go about adding the wheels in each direction. It just makes it so much easier later on to do it this way. What I've found is that some of these wheels will actually be, if we leave propulsion on for everything, pushing the tram the wrong way or the opposite way to what you expect because of them being in strange orientations, and that's not good. That is why I've got this piston down here. So let's move this whole contraption to the side so that we can safely put wheels in like that. That'll do. Now we can put them on. And now you can see what we've ended up with is a tram that is 8 blocks wide, or at least 8 blocks between the two suspensions that are mounted vertically. And that means that these suspensions will always be in contact with the lower rail, which is exactly what we're after. We want them to be slightly squeezing that rail so that the tram remains stable. You probably could get away with leaving a small gap between the wheels and the tram, but I would expect it's going to bounce around a little bit more if you do that, which is not what we want. Bouncing is never good in Space Engineers, except for when it's the bouncy drop bear. At first I was going to do this with a sort of letter code for what the positions of these were, but I had such a bad time remembering what I had to call each one, as in VLL and VUL and all sort. It just seemed easier to just stop being lazy and type it out in full when I do each group. Now, we need our top side. So what I'm wondering is whether this will give me a wheel that will actually push against that top rail. And I think we're squished down enough there that when these push up, they should be able to push up against that top rail. So I'm actually happy enough with that. I don't need that extra piston, the vertical one. So we'll just stick with it as is for now. Let's just make a quick little cage up of armor blocks so that we can place all of our extra wheels on. Those of you who watched me build the Goose might understand why I'm going about building this extra framework here. Because I have a tendency to sometimes get a little bit overzealous with my grinding work when I'm removing blocks that I didn't mean to place. I've decided that for this tram, since it will be an absolute disaster if I accidentally disconnect a part, since I will just have to rebuild the whole thing, having multiple connections in multiple orientations would probably be an advantage. So building this full wireframe box will definitely prove helpful in the long run. And you can see why I've used the left and rights. I can now, within these horizontal groups, see which is which. So if I need to just adjust one type of wheel or one wheel on one side, I'll be able to do that because I've used the left and the rights on each side. And that's without having to rename each individual block. And for projects like this, it actually makes a lot of sense to try and build in this sort of way where you've really thought about how you're doing it ahead of time. Something I'm not as great at, but will usually put the effort in to do when it becomes really necessary. Whenever I'm building something quite complex. Or I'll do it the hard way and then, once I'm finally done, realize I had a much easier way of going about things. So place these wheels down. Push our piston back the other way to allow the placement of the other wheels. If I was being really careful to make it easy for me to know which wheels are which, I would have started down this end and gone upwards so that whichever was the first wheel in a group would start as the lowest number and then we would progress, but I haven't quite done that. Hopefully that isn't something that we end up needing to have, because that would be annoying. There we go. We have our 6 wheel groups, and that's our 6 directions that we want to control the tram's movement. It ends up with quite a lot of wheels since we've got 12 top and 12 bottom. If we find that it's quite stable, we could potentially test and remove certain wheels over time and see if we still remain with everything good. I reckon that once we're no longer drilling, we might be able to remove these wheels on the front corners and these ones on the rear corners, top and bottom. We could also probably get away without having 4 wheels pushing against the top rail in the horizontal orientation. In fact, no, I'll leave them for now, but those will probably be ones we can get rid of. I'm going to do something that's a little bit cheaty. I'm going to use the transformer boxes on this since I don't know where I really want to have the batteries set up. And the transformer boxes, when we grind them down, actually give us our power cells back. Which is a little bit of a cheat, but I think given what we're doing, it kind of makes sense. It's also kind of convenient having something this small or this flat for what we're going to be working on here. So I'm going to jump ahead after I've welded all this up. When I'm setting up things like this, I actually quite prefer to have a cockpit instead of a chair and a remote control because it saves that extra step every time you jump out, jump back in. So we're going to pop a cockpit on the tram for now, as that makes it much easier since I can just hop in, grab control, and I'm straight away in control. Now, we should be good. We've got all our wheels, we've got power. So let's chance it. Now I welded up all of these blocks for the same reason that I've got lots of these blocks, so that if I grind something that I don't mean to, it's going to take a lot longer before I grind it through and destroy it. Especially now that the tram is disconnected, it's a bit high risk. So if we hop in the tram now, we get a massive depressurization effect. But if we try and move forward, you'll see that we go nowhere. So what we're first going to do is I'm going to turn off these. In fact, the upper horizontal ones, I'm going to invert propulsion. So I think they were pushing the wrong way. I'm going to increase the suspension strength on everything up to 20%. There we go. Getting some movement now. Once we make sure that each of the wheels is spinning in the correct direction, we should have fairly easy movement forward and backwards along our tram line. Woohoo! Functional. So I'll probably just fiddle with those wheel settings a bit. You can actually get away with this level of suspension strength for the most part. What I often do though is reduce the strength between the vertical ones so that we're not squeezing the rail quite so tight, as that tends to make it a little bit harder for everything to move. So let's grab our verticals. Let's drop their strength down to 10%. Yeah, now we're moving a lot more smoothly. So while it is nice to have that little bit of a squeeze, I find that if I squeeze too tight, we don't move at all. It's also really, really hard to tell whether wheels are spinning the wrong way or not. But I think we're pretty good. Look at that. Decent acceleration. Reasonably smooth. Not too many sparks. I'm pretty happy. Let's get rid of this contraption in front of the rotor and maybe actually get rid of the rotor itself, since we don't need it now. Although we might use... No. We can always replace the rotor later if we need to. It's just thinking if we were going to need it to build any other components later. What we need now is a set of drills on the front in order to actually mine out the tunnel ahead of us. But we're also going to need a set of welders to weld the rails. And that's where things get quite complicated. I did test and build a functional auto mining, auto welding, rail building tram thing, and it worked. It was slow, but it did work. I think what we might do is try and emulate roughly what I did for that one. So I think for the drills, what we'll do is we'll add a row of blocks out here, give ourselves enough room. That should be enough. And a row of blocks out here. Need enough room to fit a welder and its conveyor arm that connects to it. Then what we're going to have on here is a drill. We'll also need a welder. So these drills do not need to be piped because these drills are just going to be destroying the rock. They're not going to actually be mining anything. And I think if we have one there, then another one there. That should drill out broadly enough for the tunnel and also should clear enough vertically with the right-click mine to allow the placement of the rail. And then we'll do the same down the bottom here. One there, couple of blocks, and another one there. Then just to make sure that this is somewhat sturdy, let's add some armor blocks behind them. Since these are the leading end of the tram, there's a chance that they may take some damage, so I want to make sure that they've got some resilience to that, that the whole contraption doesn't become disconnected. And now, for the weird bit of this thing. Small grid welders do not have much range, so we're probably not going to be able to simply place a welder like this. Because if I place it here, it's not actually going to reach that bit of rail. So what I'm going to do is realize that I shouldn't have gotten pistons off my hotbar. For welding the rail, I've got this piston attached up here, and the system I'm going to use is not automated in any sense at all. I'm going to have to manually reload the steel plates into the welders, but it's not really that big a deal considering how many plates I can fit in this thing. I'll only have to do it a few times, so it shouldn't really be too much of a worry. I do have a concern, though, that I'm not going to be able to place the other welder in here. Let's just drop this down as far as it goes and see if the welder comes in contact with that rail. If we get a little bit of pushback, yep. So this whole thing is messy and ugly, but you can see that I should, if I had left an extra block of width here, I could probably put some conveyor tubes that come back, put some cargo containers, and put a sideways connector on this that I'd actually be able to load up. And if it turns out that the space in these is less than I think, I may still do that. So what is our volume? Oh, 10,000, that'll be enough. That'll get us enough plates to get a fair distance. Now, we should test this before I start moving the tram. So I'm going to grab the plates out of a couple of these. Make sure that the welders are able to actually weld them up as we go. Oops, didn't mean to completely get rid of that. Because that's going to make that very difficult to put back in. Grr. If we come back, will it give me enough room? All the way. Need to be very careful not to remove sections of rail as it becomes quite difficult later to replace them. Okay, let's hop in. Let's get our drills on our hotbar. Weapons and tools, drills. Then we want our welders to be a group so we can just have them switch on and off. Let's turn them on. Oh wait, no. Let's turn them off. Let's load them up with some plate because I didn't do that bit. Now let's turn them on and then let's move forward. There we go. Self-welding rails. Awesome. Now, it's not a fully self-building tram system, this, because we're not going to be able to project the rails ahead of ourselves. We're going to have a projector on each of the rails to be able to do that. But, you know, it's pretty close. And once I've welded up these drills, we're going to give this a bit of a test run. Before I started building the tram, I actually prepared ahead a little bit and built some extra tram line a bit deeper into this tunnel, and I think I'm going to take it a little bit further. We'll just manually place some for now, so that we can make sure that the mining and welding thing actually mostly works. Obviously, it's not a real test until we do it with a projector, but at least it's something. And I may not do the full projector method until we are on our long straight section of track, as these first bits are actually relatively short. Okay, that'll do. Let's test this thing out. Welders on. Now for the drills, we can get the right click method to stay on by holding down right button, opening up our menu, and then closing it. And I am not pressing any buttons right now, and those drills are still on their destroy stone mode. So let's slowly edge forward and see how this works out. See if I've actually lined up those drills correctly in order to drill out this tunnel to the size that I'm after. Because I want it to be at least as wide as the tunnel entrance that I built, but maybe don't need it quite the full height. Seems like it's fairly close to what I was after. Once we get a little bit deeper in, we'll be able to get a better idea. And there we go. Welding up our rails as we go. Let's hop into spectator, because that'll give us a much better view of what's going on here. There we go. That's what we're after. Now, this is a good example, well, not the best example, but it's a decent example of why I was thinking of potentially trying some horizontal rails instead of top and bottom rails, so left and right. With all of these rocks being generated by the drills, that lower rail is going to be difficult to weld onto if it's a projection. Because I've actually placed the block, it's not an issue on this occasion, but if it were a projection, I wouldn't be able to place the block because all those little graphical components of rock would be in the way. Let's just go as far as the rail will allow us. Then let's turn off the welders, stop the drills, and let's go back to the station. Then we'll check out the width of this tunnel and see if I've got it about right, about where I'm happy. Now I think these ones jiggling around here are possibly going the wrong way. Let's check and see if we've got that right. So that'll be the tram wheels lower vertical right. Let's reverse their propulsion and see if they still jiggle about as much. Still do. Can't tell if they're going the wrong way. It's very difficult. Seems to be okay. Tram's still moving nicely. Okay, let's check out our tunnel. Looking pretty good. That's looking pretty damn good. Yeah. I'm possibly drilling out a bit too high, I think, and a bit too low. So I might bring the drills towards each other by one block, although do I even have room to do that? Maybe. The reason I want the space reduced just a bit is that I would like to have these rail pieces actually embedded in the rock rather than elevated off them as they currently are. Okay, let's test out this with the new drill position. Welders on, spectator, F9 so I can control the tram while in spectator. I'm going to need some lights on this thing, I think. Currently the only lights for it are coming from, I think, my player. Rats. I don't think I can get the drills working. Oh, I wonder if I only need one layer of drills. How close am I? If I were to drop this 2 blocks and lift it 1... Yeah, I might only need 2 drills. I think 4 drills might be excessive. Let's try it. This is all about experimentation. Let's see what actually works. Let's see if we can cut down on the drill number. We've only got 52 minutes of power left on this thing. That's something to note. Drills on. Welders on. Spectator cam. Let's roll. Oh dear. What is going on? What is happening? Feel like something has gone wonky with these pistons. Have I placed any other blocks that might be getting in the way? Let's just retract them a little bit. Alright, let's see if these drills do enough. Looks like it might be just about right. Yeah, let's see. Let's actually place the blocks before I get too excited. Yeah, that one's embedded in the rock properly. How about these ones? They are as well. Yes. Perfect. That's exactly what I wanted. Now right now, doing this manually, I can only move about 10 meters per chunk. Which would make progress quite slow, but not horrible. So we just need to get far enough that we are clear of the base so I don't end up popping up somewhere where I don't want to. And that's not going to cause a problem with the wheels, is it? Having the rock that low? That high, I should say. Nope. The welders being... Oh, I think that top welder is still pushed against the roof. I'm going to have to fix that. I think that's the issue we're having currently with how this is set up. Obviously, this setup is not 100% exactly right yet. It's the sort of thing that I end up fiddling with over time and gradually improving until it works exactly how I want it. And having these welders and drills at the front really makes it difficult to get this thing working perfectly. Because the drills are shaking and because the welders need to be right up against the rails, we do make this a lot harder. And also, this whole thing is very front heavy. So this is not an ideal setup. Now, how far along are we? Oh, we've actually made it. We have pushed out beyond the level of the ticks area. Cool. So now what we need to do is start doing some curves. I might do one more straight section before I do that, just to give myself a bit of extra buffer. But we need to end up there without popping through the ground. I don't think we're going to have much risk of popping through the ground. We are very deep. Placing these blocks just reminded me of a question I've been having a lot lately, which is, why is it I've got this ability to lock stuff to the grid that I'm building to, even when I'm not attached to it, when I'm just looking at the voxels? I tested this in a new world, and it seems what you need to do to enable this. It used to just be you pressed B and it'd shift the modes, but that doesn't seem to actually change this behavior or get this behavior to start being present anymore. What you need to do is place down at least 3 blocks and then grind away the middle one. Then you'll have 2 grids. Oh, geez. Oh, that's a drifting pursuant. Oh no, I have no means to see the camera. There's a lot of gunfire. Oh, geez. Come on. I don't know if flying up here is quicker than walking. I need to look on the camera to see what's going on. Oh! That sounded like it hit something! Oh, please. Oh, you're offline. Great. You're out of power and you've disconnected from the thing, haven't you? Yep. Awesome. Gonna have to fix that later. Wait. Everything's disconnected. That's not cool. Oh, that would be why I heard it. Doesn't look like much is damaged, so I think we'll be... Oh. No! 2 solar panels got damaged. Urgh. I thought I had enough defenses. We'd been having such a good run that they'd all just been getting absolutely destroyed before they got here. All I wanted to do was build a tram. Oh good. They've all shown active again. Excellent. Yep. More damage to the solar tower. At least they're not getting, like, massive amounts of damage. They are getting a little bit. Did it even try and shoot this? Doesn't look like it even tried to shoot the decoy. I mean, I know there's chunks of debris on top of it, but I would have thought we'd see some damage to these top armor plates that don't actually get repaired by the welder underneath. Alright, let's fix up these solar panels. Oh, we got 2,000 of them. I should probably, at the end of this episode, go and weld up the solar axe, finish off, and use up all those solar panels so that solar cells so that we get even more generated. So yeah, if you grind away that centerpiece, creating 2 grids that are embedded in the voxel, you'll then be able to look at the voxel and you'll snap to the grid of those 2 stations, if that's something you want to have as a function. And that was lucky that I didn't die then, because those welders were still on. Now if you don't have spectator cam, and I just use it here because it looks a lot nicer, you could put a camera in where the welder is welding the lower rail, as that's the most important one, to make sure that you do always have some rail to drive onto ahead of yourself, rather than risking coming off the rails at the end of your construction. Now, for the tricky bit. The solar axe is a long way up from us, so we're going to need to gradually tilt our rails upward. At the other end, we'll probably need some rotors and pistons to get the track to line up perfectly to the station, but for now, let's just try and get close. And the way we're going to do that is a bit fiddly, because of the alignment we have with the station whenever we look at the voxels. What I want is to have this block able to be placed, but able to be placed just slightly off from what we're currently building. So if we walk backwards like this until it's almost there. Forward a little bit, then tilt it, then try and line it up to our grid. Now I can't do this with rotors or anything because then I can't intersect it with the voxels. If we place that there, let's have a look. Does that line up reasonably well? Yeah, I feel like I did that pretty nicely. Then we place the next couple. And then for the roof, what we need to do for the roof is actually, let's weld this one up just so that we can see that this does line up pretty neatly. It's a little bit of a bump, but it's not too bad. It should be within the tolerance of what the tram can deal with. For the top, we need to get rid of this one, and probably that one too. But what we also need to do is drill out an extra section around here so that we can connect the top rail with the bottom rail. For this, I can't place it in the voxel because it'll align to the station grid, not this new rail grid. So then we go up, making the same shape as we've got down here at the station entry. And that'll ensure that we definitely have enough clearance. Making sure that these new blocks are part of the same grid as this new section of track. And there we go. Now we've got a track on top. Part of the reason I built this several blocks in rather than building it just on the first one is that what we create by having this adjusting angle upwards is a little compression zone here right at the join. And since the top rail isn't exactly required all of the time to keep the tram stable, we can get rid of it to relieve that compression that's there. And the way I like to do it is by putting a ramp in there and then another ramp in. I think we can get away with one there and then one here. And I'll weld these up manually. And that should allow us to continue building our rail on a slight upslope. And then we can, once we've got the full tram length on this section, we can do another section that's also curved upward a bit further to continue to increase our angle. And then we can start making a bend around to the right. Let's start our drills up. Let's hop into spectator and let's see just how this works. So move up on our transition point. And hopefully this is within the margin of error of our tram. There we go. You can see that the top bit's clear of the top rail. And hopefully the front part will come back onto the rail before the back bit completely leaves it. Yep, perfect. Look at that. We're on both. And that means you can see why I had to get rid of the top bit. The middle section of the tram is actually a fair bit higher than the lower rail, which would also push it into the upper rail if it was still existing at this position. So then we're on our slight upslope. This, I think, will be a nicer system than what I'd originally planned, which was every single transition being done by rotor and piston. Especially since it will require 0 power to be present at these transitions. I mean, sure, it's a bit fiddly to set up and do, but once it's there, it's done. There's nothing to worry about anymore. And this is sort of similar to the way that Ravrik did his enormous and very, very awesome monorail build. Obviously, his was a monorail, not a tram line with 2 rails, but it's very similar in concept. But you can see the tram doesn't do too... spoke too soon. Doesn't do too badly going across that little ridgeline there. If we turn the drills off, it should progress a bit more smoothly. Yeah. There we go. A few clanks and a few bumps, but nothing destructive. Sweet. So I could, since the tram levels off fully on this section of track. Whoa, what's going on? Why are you stuck? I think that's going to be an ongoing issue, having to go back and forth over them until I fix up these wheels properly. I think I might make this section just a little bit longer because it is just barely long enough. And then we'll be able to do another transition. 31 minutes. Gonna have to really keep an eye on that battery power. I think we've still got plenty of plates in here though, yeah. 705 in that one. Ah, no!
Health critical.
Holy moly! I did it again! Could have sworn I turned off the welder. Ow! Oh! How did I get so close to dying? Oh! Okay. So once I get up to the med bay and back down here with full health, what I'm going to do is put a sensor in there so that I don't cook myself again. Nobody needs barbecued Splitsie. Nobody. Oh, that hurts so much. Ow. Oh man. This is definitely one of those situations where it's probably beneficial that I have an elevator so that I don't have to move up to the top level by jetpack, because if I was using the jetpack, there'd be such a high chance that I would go splat into the top of wherever I was heading. Ay, 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 ay. That was so close. Heal me! Heal me! Much better. Now, what do I need for a sensor? I think I'll put a sensor and a few lights on there. The lights would probably have helped too, because I might have seen that the welders were on. But youch! Can't believe I got out of there in time as well. That was incredibly lucky. Now, let's bring the tram back home so I can build on these extra bit functions that I want. Okie dokie. This sensor is going to chew through our battery power. That is a bit of a problem though. Alright, sensor is there. Sensor is going to... detect players. Set up actions. You are going to turn the welders off. And 5 meters should be enough in every direction. Oh, I've got it toggle on off, not just toggle off. I want it toggle off. This is a safety sensor, not a functional sensor. Toggle block off. That's better. Jeez. Could have been creating a cooking method that... Yeah, that sensor will be big enough. Now, how's our battery situation? 27 minutes. Not too horrible. So it's going to need to be a lot longer than that to get this fully constructed. Let's get a few lights on here. Front and back. Some of you guys are probably thinking that you've got some pretty good ideas about how to set up these wheels. So let me know, because I'm going to try a bunch of different things outside of the recording and hopefully find the setup that's going to be best. There are a bunch of variables we need to adjust, like the amount of suspension strength, which wheels are in the wrong direction. And if you guys have any tips on how to determine which way a 1x1 wheel is spinning when they start spinning so quickly that it's hard to tell whether you're getting that frame rate makes it look like it's going backwards problem, let me know, because I can't quite always work out which way the wheel is spinning. And I'm not always confident that I've got it right because of that inverse look once it starts moving fast enough. I feel like today has been a very successful day. We have the tram. It is working. It is drilling its own tunnels. It is welding its own rails, as long as I place the blocks. Next time we're going to do some of the section of track where we'll use a projector, see if it actually ends up being any faster than placing it manually. It may or may not. It may require pulsing of the drill heads so that we clear those rocks away, weld up a block, clear the rocks away. One of the things that's driven me to want to get this curve done before I start using the projector is that I want to get onto a decent steep slope so that the rocks all fall away, which should allow it to be easier to weld the blocks from a projection rather than harder. So there's that with our projector-based welding of the track, and plenty more to come. So I'll see you then.